Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm here today to show you how to set up a Helium miner on DigitalOcean. I'm not here to explain what Helium is, what gateways are, hotspots, anything like that in this video. If you have any questions, you can join the Discord channel that I'm going to link in this video, and then you can join the chat and ask everything you want. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to try to do this step by step, but if you have any questions, just ask. The first thing that you need is a DigitalOcean account, which you can just create by going to digitalocean.com. I'm also linking in this video a referral code that gives you $100 of credit for 2 months. I think that's pretty good, so you can risk-free try the services, and if it works, you can just pick the $5 a month server, and it's going to be enough to host a few miners. Depending on how many miners you decide to run in one server, you may need to increase the server capacity. So once you are in the DigitalOcean website, you have to create something called droplets. You can click Get Started with a droplet. The main thing to know here is that we want to use a Docker server. You could start with like an Ubuntu server from scratch, but if you already have everything set up for you, there's no problem. So just go to the marketplace, and then you're gonna see here the Docker image file, just select it. For this project, I'm gonna use the most basic server. It's just $5 a month, so it's pretty risk-free. As I'm near London, I'm going to just select London. You should select the server that is closest from your gateway. So for example, if you're in New York, select New York. If you're in Germany, Frankfurt, etc. Password for this, I'm just going to set a temporary password. I'm going to just select a host name. I'm going to call it Helium Miner. And let's create the server. So what it's doing now, it's DigitalOcean is setting up a new server from scratch. It's going to give you an IP address that you're going to use to do everything else. So here you can see that we have our server in London 1. It has 1 GB of RAM and 250 GB of disk. Done. Our server is ready to roll. So you can see here, this is the public IP address of your server. So now all we need to do is copy this IP address, and let's go to the terminal. If you are on Mac or Linux, you're already going to have terminal installed. If you are on Windows, I suggest you install Windows Subsystem Linux. I'm going to add the link on the video, so you can do that on your own time. So let's connect to the server. All you need to do is connect as root, it's like super admin we call it, and with the IP address. So SSH root at the IP address of the server. And then you're going to enter the password that you used. I think this is too big, let me make it smaller. Alright. The first thing we're going to do here is to test if the Docker is properly working. So for that, we're going to type docker ps space ps. Okay, so if we see that container image, that means that Docker is up and running. That's pretty good. So let's move forward with our project. The first thing we want to do is just make sure that our server is running the latest software. So for that, I'm just going to type apt update and enter. Then apt upgrade. And then type Y to install. So what it's doing now is just updating all the software, making sure that our server is running the latest packages. Alright, finally. Now that we are done with this other software update, we need to configure two things. Our server has all the ports, everything is blocked and secured. So we need to open 2 ports on our server. The first one, it's the port 44158 TCP. And also the other one that we need to open is 1680 UDP. To do that, we're going to use the command ufw allow and then the port. And then the same thing we're going to do for the other port. Perfect. So the two ports that we need to open is ready to rock. Now let's see, we are on the root file. Let's start with our miner information. Let's create the folder miner data. For that, you just use the mkdir. Now if you check, we have this folder created. Nice. Now let's configure our docker run command. For that, I'd like to use a bash script, so you don't need to type everything and it's easier to manage and configure. I'm gonna just I'm gonna use Nano for this. It's an easier text editor. I'm gonna call it run miner.sh. So let's start configuring it. Okay, so all I need to do is docker run -d. Let's do here. Miner environment. That's something that's important. The region that we're going to use. We're going to set up this environment variable called region override. And I'm going to set up here the one that you're going to use. For example, if you're in the US, you would use US 915. For example, if you are in other countries, it's going to be a different code. As I'm in Europe right now, I'm going to use EU 868. All right, next line, restart always. Don't worry about this. I'm going to share the text. You can just copy and paste and change whatever you need. Publish. I'm going to use the 680 port outside, 680 port inside, UDP. The port that we need to configure, it's the 44158, 44158, this time TCP. I'm going to call it miner. Okay. Now it's one thing that we need to check is the Docker file we're going to use. For that, we need to go make sure we have the latest version. So we're going to mount. Let's type here, type find source. Where are we hosting this? It's going to be in the root folder. Root miner data. That's the folder that we just created. And then the target is where it's going to be inside the Docker image. Var data. And now the image that we're going to use, that's important version of the Docker image that we have. We have AMD 64. This is the one that we're going to need. I'm just going to copy. Okay, so let's go back to the terminal. And now we can say quay.io/team helium/miner. Oops. And now is the version that you can see on the website. Miner AMD 64 2020 GA. Beautiful. So this is the configuration that we have for the Docker file. If everything's right, it should just work. So then press Ctrl X and then Y to save. If you see the file, now we have the miner data, which is the folder that's all the blockchain, all the information from this miner is going to be in. And then we have the file that every time we want to file this file, it's just going to start a Docker container without the shenanigans of the server. Now it's pretty simple. All I need to do to run our miner is just type sh run miner, and let's see if it happens. So it didn't find the Docker container locally, so it's just downloading it from the server. That's going to happen every time there's a new update. So it downloaded downloaded the Docker image. So if we want to see what's happening, we can just type docker ps. Beautiful. So here we have, let me just do it again to make it easier to see. Here. Okay, let me do it again. Yeah, this is the container ID, is the unique ID for that container. This is the image that we used. It's been created 35 seconds ago. It's been up for 34. And then these are the ports that is being redirected. And we have our miner working. Wasn't that hard, right? Just two things that I like to see here is, so what's going to happen now is that the miner is going to sync with the blockchain. It's going to download the entire blockchain to the computer. And we need the miner to be in sync with the blockchain before we can add any device. To do that, we can just type docker exec and then the name of the miner that we did before, and then the command that's going to run inside the container. So 1. And then we can check what is the current block of the blockchain. HTTPS api.helium.io/v1/blocks/height. Cool, so the height of the block is 490,000. So once this one becomes 490,000, it means that the miner is in sync with the blockchain. One super important thing that I want to remind you is to back up the key. So every time you set up a new miner, it generates something called swarm key. The swarm key is the unique key that makes sure that that miner is who it is. In the future, you're going to have to pay for those to be able to join the Helium network. And I think once you buy it, you're going to have that key. You're going to connect that key to a gateway or whatever. It's going to be able to join the blockchain. So make sure you back up the key. So I'm going to teach you how to do it. So you have that folder miner data. So let's go to that folder. And inside that folder, we're going to have the folder called miner. Inside that folder, you have a file called swarm key. Make sure that you download that folder, download this file in your computer somewhere safe, because if anything happens, if this server crashes, you have to make a new server, new miner. The only way to identify this miner as being the same one as it was before is with the swarm key. And that's what we need to do for today. Actually, let's make this a little bit more interesting and let's set up the second miner. What if you want to have, for example, two hotspots connecting to the same server? So we're gonna need a new miner, right? Let's do it. So let me go back. I have the folder called miner data. I'm gonna create a new folder called miner data 2. Okay, I'm gonna copy the run miner to run miner 2. Now let's edit that file. Things that I need to change here are the ports. So the publish ports, I'm gonna put 1, 1, 9, 9. You need to call it something else. I'm gonna call this miner 2. Also, you need to change the source. I call it miner data 2, right? Everything else is the same. So let's close this file. Before we run this container, let's open the port again. We need to do the same thing we did before, right? ufw allow and then 44159 TCP, UFW allow 1680 UDP. Oh, sorry, that's already done. U1, boom, new port. All the rules are ready to go. Here is where things get a bit interesting because we need to change the port that's directed inside the Docker. So before we can do that, we have to run the second miner. So the same thing as we did before. So we have Docker PS. You can see the first miner running. We call it miner. So let's run the second miner. Let's run miner 2, right? Boom. It's going to start the second miner. It didn't need to download the images because we already have that on our system. So if I do Docker PS now, we're gonna see that we have miner 1 and miner 2, and these are the ports. Everything's up and running. You can just see, I think the miner is using full processing power because the syncing takes a little bit of processing and takes time. I think each miner takes around 24 hours to fully sync, so that's something that you can just do and just leave it. Once it's done, it's not going to be using the full processing power of the server. So last thing we need to do. Okay, so what we need to do here, just follow me, is say Docker copy miner 2, right? Let's create this. We need to copy the file that's inside the Docker to our configuration, and then we can change that. Releases 0.1.0/sys.config. Let's save it here. So what we did now, we have the file sysconfig. This is the configuration file that's inside the container. So we're gonna just change, so we can have all the configurations here, as you can see. So we can just do a simple search and replace. With 44159, that's the one we did. And then the second one here, search 1680/1681. Okay, and then the file that we're gonna save, search and replace, done, beautiful. Oh, we waited. Okay, that worked. So yeah, so all you need to do is just type this thing. Now, what you want to do is copy the config file back to the Docker. So Docker copy this file sys inside the miner 2 opt miner releases 0.01. Oops. 0.1.0. Done, and now let's restart that container. And our second miner is ready to roll. It's going to be ready to have a second gateway connected to it. Docker PS, you can see here that the second miner just restarted. The first miner is up and running. And then we can repeat this same process as many different miners we want. We could have multiple miners, as many as the server can handle. And that's it. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please just ask on the video, or I'm always on Discord as well. And if you want to donate some Helium tokens or Ethereum or Bitcoin, my address are also in the video. Cool, thank you very much, and see you around.